How's it going, y'all? I'm back from Christmas break, and I walked into my studio and I was kind of horrified by the mess that has been accumulating over time. And so I thought I would do just sort of like a cleaning of some sort while I just talk about stuff. So I want to get back to producing and working on other stuff, and I feel like I can't really do that with this much clutter going on. So yeah, let's just get to work on that. Anyway, today I wanted to talk today about change. What does change mean? How do we understand change? And most of this kind of was triggered by a thought I had while I was on the airplane coming back from Northern California, where I grew up and where I went to go visit for the holidays. And on the airplane, there was consistently the same Christmas songs being played for most of the time while we were on the runway waiting to take off. And to me, I don't know if I'm just jaded or I'm the Grinch or what, but like, I don't know, I've been on this earth for a decent amount of time, and like, it feels like just purgatory, It feels like we're just spinning in circles. It feels like the same exact songs we've been playing every single year. Maybe somebody's doing like a little bit of a different thing, but it's like more or less the same. And it just feels like we're stuck in time, like nothing's changing. It doesn't feel like years are changing. And it feels like we have this whole like culture of New Year's resolutions, but like, like I feel like we're not changing the world we live in. It just feels like something repeating over and over and over. And I know it's just like sort of a metaphor, right? Like maybe it's not best to look into Christmas songs that much. Maybe it's just a song and is what it is. But I don't know. That's something that got me thinking about change in other ways. I'm gonna go get a trash can real quick so I can actually do some work instead of just gather things. Okay, I'm back. But yeah, so what I was thinking is going back to Northern California, around the Bay Area where I grew up. It's very fascinating because I would say around 2016, 2015, there started to be a long string of droughts there. Everything was drying up, massive wildfires. I remember in college, I had one day where I woke up at 4 a.m. and there was just like sirens everywhere. And it was just like a blazing inferno. Like the sky was red. Everything was just like complete doom, Got into my car, drove further south to try to get away from the fires. It was a complete, like movie apocalyptic scene, going down the highway, you'd have all of these ambulances and everything just rushing up and down the roads. And it just kind of felt like end times, and it felt like it kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And it felt like, this was some change. Not change for the better, change for the worse, but this was change of some sort. And ever since then, I've been saying, every single year, these fires are just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And they did for a while, They definitely kept up their pace, got even worse in many places. And it was so weird, and I don't know if it was off-putting or maybe just my confirmation bias getting crushed. But going back for this trip, everything was so green, everything was so wet, so much rain all the time. I was talking to my parents, and they were saying as well that it hasn't been too dry this year. It's been very, very wet. And so that got me thinking of, well, then all of these sort of stories I tell myself all the time, of, oh, this is just going to keep happening, or this is the way things are. These sort of like slaps in the face of, in this case, nature being like, okay, yeah, maybe, but not this year, is kind of funny to me. It also sort of made me think about the whole issue itself. Climate change is something that is pretty scary, and obviously, just because Northern California hasn't been hit too bad by the effects of climate change this year doesn't mean it won't next year. And more importantly, it doesn't mean that other places in the world haven't been hit, which this year was particularly bad for many other places in the world. But, it just sort of made me think of how hard it is to grasp the concept of climate change, to grasp the concept of environmental apocalypse, when we only live in these microclimates. If you hear someone on the news say, climate change is a real thing and everything is changing, it's just going to get hotter and so on and so on. Well, just a normal everyday person is going to be like, well, I don't know. I see ups and downs. Right? I see some years it's a bit hotter, some years it's a bit cooler. It kind of changes. I think that a lot of people may recognize, like I did, that, even though you might have a year or two of respite, things are just getting warmer. The apocalyptic natural disaster situations are just getting worse and worse. Sure, but most of the evidence we see is from some scientists somewhere saying, hey, look, this number is going up and that's scary. That is much harder to internalize. Humans aren't very good at looking at numbers and feeling scared unless it's a very specific situation. I'm going to clear some dishes off of here and I will be back. Anyways, this gets into sort of a rabbit hole of, what does change mean to begin with, and when do we like change? When do we like stasis? How do we, grasp these concepts in their totality? And that gets into a more of a philosophical discussion that doesn't necessarily we need to go down here, but just in terms of my personal reflections on the matter, I'm feeling that most years I do things somewhat similarly. I do some things differently. I see the last couple years have been quite different in tone for me, but also I'm working on projects and stuff, and the act of working on albums and other things is similar to past years. However, one thing I do appreciate my past self and current self doing is completing these projects. I can look back at my history, at my creative history, and I have I believe I have 4 albums out, and each one sort of tells a story of the time and space I was living in, both sort of sociopolitically and musically, emotionally, all of those things. and I'm sure you creatives out there can also resonate with this in some ways, is that I listen back to those projects and oftentimes I'm like, well, this kind of sucks, you know? Like this is not really it. Like I could do way better than this. And some of that is true, I think, and I think it's good to recognize where you have improved and where you can still improve. That's, I think, a marking of a healthy artist, or somebody who's self-aware of the situations, self-aware of their skill and ways to grow. However, I do think also that looking back at previous works gives us an opportunity to reflect on the honesty of that work. So, for example, with my first album, it's, I would say, my worst album, objectively. However, it is also, I think, very honest. I don't think I was trying to put on much of a show. I think in some ways here and there, I think I was definitely being a little bit of a lyrical miracle at times, maybe more than at times. But for the most part, I was saying things that were true to myself. I wasn't trying to bullshit my way to just make a project to put it out there. And I guess I'm kind of proud of myself for that, you know? I don't think, when I look back, it feels like change because of the honesty that I put into that time, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like I was just hustling to throw out some content. I guess maybe that's what I'm doing right now. But it does feel like some real change. And looking over the years, I can sort of see these projects as documentation over time. And, you know, I don't want to sound preachy at all, but maybe if any of you are feeling stuck, if you're feeling like time's not changing, you're hearing the same Christmas songs every year, doesn't change, it's the same stuff, then you know, you might try to make some honest art, something that reflects who you are. And as you complete that, as you finish it, and that's a key thing, you have to finish it, or abandon it is probably a more more optimized term. No one ever finishes any art, everyone knows that. But you have to abandon it, because if you don't, it's just gonna feel like a perpetual project forever. I think I'm going to actually take my record player off and put it somewhere. The reason being is that the needle is fucked up, and I have to get like new hinges for the back of it. And also, I'm not sampling many records right now, mostly because I'm just finishing up production of this new album that I'm trying to put out. And it might be nice to have this space on my desk to do notes, work on other projects and so on. So I'm going to work on getting this thing off. And just like that, you know, we got some new discoveries here. We got probably like a like a couple month old spoon here, you know. We got a guitar pick. I was looking for this thing for a long time. Sometimes the best thing you can do is clean your room, as stupid as that sounds. I hope you all have been able to see some of the cats move in, do their thing. They all come in over time. This is Chomsky. Hey, girl. They're chilling. They're happy I'm back, I think. One of our cats was not very happy. He was, I think, a little salty that we left. We had a cat sitter and everything. We tried to do the best we could. But he was a little salty. I don't think he liked that we left. So, but now he seems a bit better. I don't know if any of y'all have had that. Your cat, you leave and your cat's just like, why'd you leave? Like, that makes no sense. We're making progress. We're doing a thing. But yeah, change is an interesting thing. Looking forward to, the new year. Another thing to think about is, what's the point of New Year's resolutions? It's a huge sort of cultural tradition, at least here in the US. Probably a lot of other places in the world as well, although maybe not the same days and so on. I'm pretty uncultured, I must admit. But, New Year's resolutions, I think, are, a fun little tradition that we play. We play these games, but oftentimes I think they're quite meaningless. People don't usually change things too much. And I think that a lot of that is because the conditions we find ourselves in don't really allow for much change. For example, if you're working a super demanding job all the time, you can make the resolution that, hey, I want to work on more hobbies more often, or I want to get out exercise a lot more, or other things. But I mean, you could try, but if you have this super demanding job that's super unsustainable and unhealthy, then you're probably going to be too tired to do those things. And it's not really your fault. It's just the fact that, you're working a extremely demanding job and you just don't have the energy. In fact, maybe resolutions are just a way to keep people docile. Keep people concerned with the micro changes that they can make in their own lives instead of the more macro changes. They can be quite significant if, say, one unionizes their workplace or becomes an activist to not have to work as many hours. Those things you might actually be able to do more hobbies if you do that. Some things to think about. Getting to the point, I think, here shortly where I'm just going to have to start vacuuming things. Can we talk for a second of how just thankful I am for this vacuum cleaner? This thing goes hard. I've had so many vacuum cleaners that have been so terrible. And they've all been $100. And I've always thought I'm spending $100 for a vacuum cleaner. It better be good. But then I spent $400 for this one or something. I was like, fuck it. Take my money. It better be good. And it's good. So maybe you just got to spend $400 for a vacuum cleaner, which is really dumb, but it does its thing. My cat turned on my computer. Sometimes they'll turn off the computer when it's on. That's very fun. Anyways, I got quite a bit done. Not looking too bad. I'm gonna finish organizing all this stuff, do a bit more, and probably get to work on stuff. But, Lucy, you want to say bye? But yeah, I don't really have any more to talk about, just sort of venting about stuff. But if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel. I'm just talking about things that matter to me, I guess. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.